Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Zach Congonis. We are here to bring you the best solutions to your lifting problems. Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
Welcome back to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. We're here today without Mickey once again. We're joined by Josh, Coach Josh, behind the scenes.
Hello.
So we've had a lot of fill-ins recently. So Josh has offered his services to come into the podcast and give his valuable opinions on things. Specifically, what do you specialize in? Eating takeaway food, doing cardio.
Big fan of takeaway food. Not great at cardio.
Yeah,
pretty good at orienteering.
Fucking loves.
We did learn that. Yeah, if you want to go back and listen to it.
So many things of Guzman.
We've given up on Guzman here because the Guzman closest to us around the corner is actually the longest. I think they hold the record for the slowest fast food of all time.
They go to Mexico, get all the ingredients, and bring them back before they serve us.
Yeah, you'd get better if you went to a fucking 5-star restaurant where they cook the food in front of you. Like, they would serve it quicker than these guys. Don't know what they do with the Guzman, but anyway. We are not joined by Bowser today. He has been absolutely banned from the podcast. Mickey might drag him back in future ones, but for today, when she's not here, he's absolutely banned from the room. After the last 2 podcasts of him just being an utter distraction and not adding any value to the podcast. So anybody that came on here to listen specifically to Bowser, sorry to break your hearts. He's out today. He's out. He's banned. But Zach, you had a good weekend away where'd you go? Adelaide?
Went down to Radelaide. You got to call it Radelaide because it's so cool down there. I went down to go and see some friends and ended up going to watch one of our Nexus Circus clients, Nexus Circus Lucy, do a fucking cool shit, which was really exciting to watch. Did some juggling and held small people on her shoulders and threw them around. Very
part of our
impressive to
upcoming
watch.
circus team.
I fucking watched this other dude. There's actually, I lost my shit. So you made the joke of Nexus Circus, and one of the circus gyms she trains at is called Nexus Circus. Like, no word of the fucking lie.
Yeah, of course they would. They would have heard the podcast, started it up straight away, just get it launched off the ground.
Contact the lawyers.
They got straight into that idea.
Classic fucking, yeah. But the Nexus podcast is still underway. I'm still recruiting. If you're a circus, if you've got a cool act, it doesn't have to be like actual circus level quality. Like, I'll take anything. But if it's circus worthy, like we'll put on a show at the end of the year or something. So reach out. If you can just like eat, if you can eat like a watermelon in 5 seconds, like that's good enough. Like that's, like anything along those lines. It's kind of fascinating.
Hold on. So I just thought of a new, just like the tattoo free membership. I'm not going to say how much free membership because apparently I cost the company a lot of money that last time.
Yeah.
But we will organize a special prize. We will organize a special prize of Mickey's discretion if someone can send a video of eating an entire watermelon in under 15 seconds.
Jesus.
15 seconds is, I think that's literally impossible. But I would just love to see someone eat an entire watermelon within
Okay, how about
minutes.
The person who sends us a video of them eating a watermelon the fastest gets something? Yeah, are we going to do that? I reckon that's a good call out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if only one person does it, they get whatever prize that Mickey deems isn't going to financially bankrupt the company.
Yeah, like you and your promises.
Yeah. You can have Zach.
Hey, my promises got someone a tattoo.
That was well worth
success.
it. Yeah,
Loz,
you're an absolute champion, and we do not regret that decision.
Loz, you're an absolute gun.
Fucking hell. I'm sure she hasn't heard that before.
Moving on.
Let's let's keep. Well, yeah, you're moving on today. Hey, thanks. It's good. I like Josh. He can stay. Today we are talking about another episode. We talked about peaking a lot. I mean, you can't really talk about powerlifting without talking about peaking along the way. But diving deeper into the peaking subject, in the next couple of months, there are numerous fairly large competitions around Australia. Multiple federations running their state competitions around this time of year. Pro Raw happening in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, just a lot happening in powerlifting at the moment. So the first big events for the year usually happen in March. So a lot of people should be coming into comp right now, and so we thought, hey, another episode covering peaking topics wouldn't go astray at this point. So today we're going to frame it from we put together a list of what ifs essentially. So different situations that may arise in prep for people that we've seen firsthand multiple times, that we're going to try and help give some context to and navigate for people, some advice behind. So they're all we're not going to get jump in, it's not going to get super scientific. This is all based on just experience and us as coaches talking people through these different situations. But we've got a list of a bunch of things. Whether we get through them all today, we'll see. But we'll kick things off with just the first one. Zach, if you want to take it, on what if I fail a lift. And so I think, failing a lift, it's pretty bound to happen during prep. So I think we needed to give a little bit more context to this one and say we're failing a lift in the latter stages of a prep, somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks out, where things are getting heavy, like a heavy single which you would have expected to hit, and you've failed it for whatever reason. What's your advice on that? What's your approach there as a coach?
So the first thing you do is you draft up a really lengthy Instagram response as to why you're pulling out of the meat and how you pull your hamstring. Now, so depending on, as you said, what that's top tier right there. Depending on how close you are to the meat and why you failed the lift, there's a couple of different things to take into account. There's of course going to be the actual, okay, we're going to have to change some things in regards to what weights we're lifting next week. Do we reattempt? Do we not reattempt? And then there's also some sort of coddling that needs to happen to make sure the lifter doesn't cry themselves to sleep for the next 4 days. Because the biggest issue in my mind with somebody failing a lift close to comp is the psychological fallout. Not necessarily the actual programming side, because it's easy enough to either cut weight back for a week or two, give them a rest and wave back up, or, change the plan slightly. But a substantial miss close to a comp can rattle someone pretty bad. And that's kind of the first port that I would focus in on and try and ascertain, okay, how are they feeling about this? Is there certain ways that we can get them to understand why they might have missed the lift and get that motivation back there and figure out what pieces of the puzzle we need to put back into play to rebuild that momentum? Because once that momentum's lost, you got to fucking get them rolling again to a certain extent. Unless they're just an absolute unit and who gives a fuck? Let's keep going.
Yeah, that comes with experience. But I think you've nailed it in terms of the first thing is dealing with that immediate kind of, I call emotional response to it. Obviously you're going to, as an athlete, miss a lift in the gym. I'm not going to be happy about it. Maybe pretty pissed about it. Might throw some things, might say some words, might make some people angry. That's fine. Do whatever you have to. Get it the fuck out of your system. I'm not sitting here going you should, just be okay with it and just move on and live. It's not that, you got to get a little bit, let it out. But after you have that initial kind of emotional response to it, we need to try and bring some logic into the equation. So first thing I would say is, obviously, before you go and do the whole logical side and start to think about the whys and understanding what happened and where do we go from here and all that really good stuff that you said comes after, is just I would advise, this is really hard to do sometimes, but try to finish the session. You don't have to go I'm just going to do the back offs at the same, do the back offs, maybe take 10% off the bar, because the miss is going to rattle you a little bit mentally and probably physically as well. But even everything else, all your accessories, just pull them back a little bit, but just get things done, because if there's anything that missing a lift that won't help missing a lift is getting weaker. So let's, that's really not going to help your situation, and make sure that you come back and hit it on the next week that would obviously be ideal. So I would say try to get it done. It's sometimes really hard if you're really pissed off about it and you've really fucking worked up to it, and then it's just, it is hard. But try to do that. And then, like you said, I think trying to use the word understand, I think that's a really strong word here, and just try and understand, not that you will ever have an answer as to why you failed it, because obviously if you put it in the program, you've expected to hit it, like you've planned that's a number that this person should be able to hit from our perspective, or that they should be able to hit from theirs. But there's a series of possibilities that's probably led to that fail, whether it's sleep, a bad sleep the night before, or bad nutrition leading up to it, or like somebody's pissed you off in traffic on the way and you've had to like whatever it is. Like there's no matter how like real that reason is, like try to come up with a bunch of potential things that may have contributed to that, and then list them out so that we can make sure, hey, in this next session we're going to try and avoid that stuff. And also usually there's some good to take away from it. Like I was talking to an athlete just the other day, and that they failed a squat, and luckily it was far enough out that we can kind of do some stuff with it. But they failed a squat, and there was a lot of breakdown in their upper back. It was a pretty technical thing that can definitely be fixed, and we were able to go like, all right, like let's use this info. Let's put another squat on a different day in the week, just at a weight that's comfortable, and really like focus on getting that. Let's try and give you some more practice during the week. Let's try and focus on that a little bit harder the next time you do it. Now that you've had it on your back, you know what it feels like. It takes away a little bit of the scariness of it sometimes, even if you did fail. There are a bunch of like potential positive things that you can take away from a fail as well. So like I always try and get people to go like, all right, let's try and see some of that positive, and take something from it that we can bring into the following weeks that are going to make us a better lifter. So yeah, get your rage out first, get angry at the world, have a cry, whatever your emotional response to it is, but then you need to come back to it with some logic and go like, how can I get better from this? How can I ensure this doesn't happen next time? And guess what? Sometimes it does happen next time too, which is super fucking frustrating, but all you can do is keep working on it. Keep applying it. I'm sure that any sport, like like if you're a basketball, lose the basketball game or whatever, I'm sure the coach doesn't after the game go out the back and just go, you're all fucking failures, and there's you're all just absolutely shit house. Like I'm sure they go back and they talk strategy so that they can work it out so it doesn't happen again, right? They do something about it.
Well, like you said, you'll learn something from that miss. And I think something that comes back into that understanding why you missed section of it is trying to look at it, or if you have a coach, this helps a bunch, having someone else look at it objectively, because as you said, you're never going to be able to pick exactly why. And a lot of the time people will try and just narrow it down to one specific thing that kind of absolves them of any responsibility. They're like, oh, I just misgrooved it. Oh, I just pitched forward. Like if you're saying that you misgrooved it, I'm 99% sure you didn't misgroove it. I think it's just heavy and you screwed the pooch. 99% of the time you fail a lift because it's so heavy that you couldn't do it at that point in time. And that's fine. The next week you may be in a better position to be able to do it. But understanding that it's always going to be multifactorial, and you're going to be able to pick things that can or cannot be changed. And focusing on the things that you can address and change is always going to be better than trying to figure and focus in on this ethereal misgroove, because you can't take active steps to fix a misgroove unless you were like training and then Bowser runs in front of you and now you're looking at Bowser run across the floor and you fall over when you're squatting. There's some instances, but for the most part it's just heavy.
Fatigue plays into your technique and all that as well, so that like you said, it's multifactorial. You'll never know the exact answer, but all you can do is try and come up with a list of potential answers and then try to do better on them and then see what happens. That's all you can do. As far as like
and
what you said,
that also brings us to what would your opinion be of reattempting on the same day that you did miss? Because it's something that depending on the person, they'll be more or less inclined to do.
Well, what you said before with, dog running in front of you in the gym or whatever, like something like that, sure, go for it again, retake it, regather yourself, go outside, take a breath, come back in, go again. But for the most part, if it is just really heavy and you're a bit gassed, I would say 99 out of 100 times you are not going to get it on that next attempt, no matter how much you try and tell yourself that it was a misgroove or whatever. But I try and weigh up like the pros and cons in my head to it. So like the pro is like, maybe I get it and it gives me a little bit of a like, yes, that was great, like mental win from that. But really like, really the odds are very skewed against you you're going to probably fail that lift. And how is that going to affect you if that happens? And probably like now you're going to go from like, oh, it was a bit of a misgroove, I'm okay with that, to like, I'm fucking like, then you're really going to start like,
I'm a piece of shit.
Yeah, I'm going to pull out a comp now, or like also you're risking injury. Like there are a lot more on the con side than the pro side. So usually, even if you think that, yeah, actually I did kind of fuck it up and I might get it this time, usually it's not worth the potential that's going to happen. I would just, for the most part, understand that.
I very clearly remember.
Go for it.
I very clearly remember in whatever the year that COVID cancelled Pro Raw, I missed a 320 squat 3 times in one session, and I've never felt so deflated in my entire life. After the first miss, I missed it because it just was not there that day, and I refused, because I'd never failed. I'd never dropped a heavy squat before. I was like, nah, this doesn't happen. I'll do it again. I missed it a second time, and then I just left the wraps on, sat on the floor like fucking Pooh Bear, and tried it again. And it was stupid. And I felt bad afterwards. That's a little anecdote. It doesn't help many people, but it happens.
And like I said, it's multifactorial. It's not because you just, like if, say in that instance, 320 you failed it, and I'm assuming you would, I don't know if that was a PR attempt or whether you'd actually done heavier than that in the past or whatever, but even if you had done heavier in the past, it's not like you failing it on that day means you've gotten weaker. It just means that like there's fatigue at play, or there's other factors at play, like all that stuff that I said before. There's other things at play. Yeah. Whereas people will talk themselves into, I failed this, and it's less weight than I've done before, which means I'm now weaker. Like, how has this happened? I've been training hard, and then that's when all the negative comes into your head. But just understanding that your performance, especially at that 1RM peak top weights level, fluctuates on a day-to-day basis. All right, Josh, do you have anything on that? We're good?
No.
Covered it?
First time I ever squatted 200, I actually failed it 5 times and just thought I'd keep trying.
Nice.
UGTO was in the gym at the same time, and I felt like a failure because he was trying to film content. And I was just failing 200 kilos in the squat right next to him over and over and over again.
Yeah, you can go back. If you go back through his YouTube archives, you can find a video of Josh in the background just failing miserably.
Say that again, Zach.
Did you get it afterwards? That's the important question.
I kind of half got it on like the second attempt, but the spotter I had at the time was like kind of touching my chest. So I was like, nah, it didn't count. So I re-attempted it like 4 or 5 times.
Sometimes you can pull it out of your ass. I remember my first 100 kilo snatch. I failed it 9 times before I got it.
Snatches are a little different, but we won't go into that because like it's a whole different thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm basically just in the background of one of his videos just failing constantly.
I really want to find that video. Now that you brought that up.
There's a series with Aaron Pilates, so it makes it
there we go.
It down for you.
Somebody find it.
Hold your own gym. I honestly thought he just felt bad for me in the end. Because he just kept staring at me like, bro, pack it up. Call it a day.
Oh, man. All right, let's move on. So we got the next what if situation here, which is what if I hit my... This is one that we hear all the time that doesn't really happen like this, but what if I hit my heavies too early and, peak too early is what you'll hear from people, as in like at 4 weeks out, 5 weeks out, whatever, like they hit this number and they're on a roll, and then from there it all feels backwards. And I see this happen all the time, and it's not because of like things gone wrong. It's just it's fatigue management, or like somebody will, like their bench will be flying, and then squats will start to get heavy, and the squatting will impact the shoulders and the biceps and the elbow pain that we're all very aware of. and so their bench will start to take a hit from that. And then that'll get in their head like, what the fuck? Like, bench was going so great, and now it's like not going so great, without kind of thinking about those other variables that are affecting performance and the balance between them. So you see this all the time, and it's usually, not always, but usually this person will get to comp, they'll do a deload, comp will go great, and they'll be like, oh, that, it's all fine. But I'm sure we've all had clients tell us this. I'm weak, or I'm peaked too early, or you see it on somebody's Insta post, like you said, Zach. Like, why do you see people saying this? What do you feel is the outcome or the reason?
Look, I think a lot of the time people are kind of stuck in that old mindset of this is what my peak has to look like, or they've had one peak where they had a spectacular meet that looked this specific way, so they're like, nah, I've got to hit my heaviest at 2 weeks out. If I don't do that, the peak's ruined. When realistically, no one peak is ever going to look the same, and depending on when you hit things, or depending on what lifestyle stress is going on, different numbers can move just differently dependent on fucking, I don't know, if you didn't sleep that night. RP 8, there should have been a 7, is now a 9. That sentence didn't make sense, but you get what I mean. Like, it comes down to so many things that these peaks are going to take different winding roads dependent on what's going on. And like we do now, being a bit more focused on reactive training styles and more auto-regulation, that amplifies that even more, as opposed to the old school, okay, now you do your 3s, then you do your 2s, now you do your singles. Now it's kind of jumbled and blurred the lines of what the peak actually looks like and how it progresses, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point, that all of your preps and all of your peaks are going to look a little bit different. Like, if I was, if we cloned ourselves and ran the exact same kind of protocols, but one person had like some uni exams on mid prep, or took a holiday fucking in sometime in the prep, or their nutrition was better or worse throughout the prep, like, it's going to change the fatigue. Also, like, from our perspective, from a programming perspective, if you're doing more or less volume, it can skew like your like what's actually happening, like in your top sets and stuff like that. Like, you're going to see performance dip and change throughout at different rates, and then it's up to us as coaches to kind of take this data, which might look different, and go like, and try and interpret it and go like, this is what's happening for the better or worse, and adjust things so that so we peak for the certain day. But that's the whole point of comp prep and peaking, is that we are looking to perform best on that particular day. So sometimes how you get there might look a little bit different. You might be your strongest, well, you might hit your best lifts at 3 weeks out, or 4 weeks out, or in the week, like right up to it for some people. But as long as we're the strongest at the comp and stuff, like, that's the goal. So I think just understanding the process and understanding that it's not exactly the same every time is super important to getting your head around this. The other thing that I was going to mention was, obviously, we've talked about it at length through multiple episodes, but like, using auto-regulation can help a lot here, because sometimes if you're just running more of like a linear style, like, I'm going to increase the weight every week, and that's how you've done preps before, where the weight's just steadily going up and you're dropping reps and whatever, then maybe you're not used to like dealing with these little bit of ups and downs, and dealing with fatigue kind of moving about, and you're used to just that bar going up every single week. So like, it can be kind of a bit of a head fuck to get over that. But if you use auto regulation, you use it and you actually stick to the RPE, as in, like, if you're having a week that doesn't feel so good, pulling it back a little bit, and then if you're having a week that feels great, pushing it a little bit, and going with those ebbs and flows of fatigue, you will avoid this kind of like peaking early, or like this I guess mental situation where you think you've peaked early, more likely. Like, you're able to manage it and understand what's going on a little bit more, and see trends and stuff like that. Like, I just see people, even under me these days, that understand this process, where like, you've programmed an 8, but like the 8's not better than last week's 8, so they just push it more, and it ends up being your 10, and then you're like, it doesn't have to go up. doesn't have to. Like, that's not the process. Like, just understand, like, the stimulus comes from multiple factors, including, like, the difficulty, not just the weight that's on the bar. But anyway, it all comes back to fatigue management in terms of how you do that, and there's multiple ways to get around that, and we've talked about it at length as well. So I think from all of that, what we've said, the biggest takeaway is just understanding that you're going to be weaker and stronger throughout prep, not because you've actually like lost strength or gained strength, but because of the multiple things that come into how you perform on any particular day. So don't worry about that, and worry about the comp day itself, and you'll be fine. Yeah.
It also comes down quite heavily to expectations as well. Say you've got somebody who they have this goal number that they want for the comp, and in some situations having the goal and working backwards from it does work quite well, unless the goal is just exponentially out of reach. And you tend to find these people who peak too early or overshoot too close to the meet date are just trying to reach for this number that they can't hit. And it just puts them in a position where to reach their goal, they have to hit this number to keep the progression going. And chances are, if your goal requires you to linearly increase weights for 15 weeks straight at 10 kilo jumps to get even close to it, it's probably an unrealistic goal.
Yeah, I'm all for
goals. There's no room for failure.
Yeah, I'm all for goals. I'm all for having like higher expectations, like use them to push yourself, drive yourself, go harder, all that different stuff. Like you need it, but it's understand that your performance on the day like has absolutely no like just because you've set a goal, it doesn't mean that has to happen. Like your body owes you nothing to hit that goal that you've set. You have to more focus on like the day-to-day stuff. Like the result that you get on the day is going to be an outcome of the effort that you've put in day-to-day, week to week. And so I'm all for having that goal as long as the effort that that expectation, as long as the effort that you're putting in each and every day is reflective of that goal. You know what I mean? I see heaps of people like, oh yeah, I want to squat 400 kilos or whatever, but then they only do half their sets on squats, and the squats are kind of crap, and they like eat like crap on squat day. And and it's just like, man, like, do you want to get good at squats or not? Like, it just seems like everything that you're doing is actually, it's like you're trying to make yourself fucking weaker on squats. So yeah, that's just a bit of a side tangent, but like, the goals are great to drive you there, but they need to be backed up by the effort that you're putting in.
And you even have some people who put in such a tremendous effort and still just fall over at the finish line, which is also fine. Like, it happens. It's a sport that you only compete at most 3 times a year, if you're being somewhat responsible with your comp calendars. And it's not unheard of to have 3 meets that you just kind of screw the pooch in. I mean, once you get to the 3rd one, you fucked up. You're probably rethinking some of your strategies, but it's not like you can play a game on Sunday, then come back next week and do it again. Like, you have extended durations between competitions, and sometimes it means that you get 1 or 2 comps in a row where stuff doesn't go your way, and then you're in a spiraling pit of depression, which happens.
Yeah, well, it's like, it goes back to what we said about failing a lift or whatever. You need to, after a comp, you go through the same process. You let the emotion ride out, whether it's good or bad emotion, and then you come up with a logical approach, look at the low-hanging fruits that you can improve as an athlete, and start to work on them, come up with a strategy to move forward. Let's move on though. So we've covered injury and aches and pains a fair bit on one of our earlier episodes, but in regards to prep, we're going to mention here, like, I hurt myself within, like, again, in the later stages of a prep, because hurting yourself early in a prep, like if you piss off your knee early in a prep, you've got plenty of time to kind of juggle around volume or come up with strategies to kind of get you around it. But when you get close to comp at 5 weeks out or so, and say you do something, your strategy isn't really to, like, your strategy is literally just to manage it at that point. Like, how can I kind of not make this worse and still perform the best I can on the day? So the goal changes when it's that close to comp. But let's give that exact situation. Like somebody's done a squat. Maybe they've just had like a bad night of sleep or something. They've come in fatigued. They've screwed up a couple of reps, and now their knees pissed off after their squats. Like, what's your response as a coach to kind of get people to the finish line?
Well, very similar to the missed lift. It actually gives you like that tactical injury card on Instagram, so you can have something you draft just in case.
True.
But when that happens, like the first thing that I'll kind of look at is just fucking, okay, something feels bad, cut the session there, and or do some slight movement. Generally, like if it's a back or a hip or a knee, I'll just say, cut it there, go for a decent walk, see how it feels and let it chill. Don't go and get someone to massage it straight away. Don't ice it, don't fuck with it, don't stretch it. Just walk around, be generally active, see what it feels like the next day. Then I go through a checklist of what can this person now do? What options do we have available? Can they still squat to a certain extent? Can they still pull? Can they still bench? And figure out what they can do and then build my plan forward from there. If the person completely can't squat at all at 4 weeks out, okay, it probably doesn't look good. If they're kind of niggly in the bottom of a squat, I'm probably going to attenuate load and volume for a week or two and see what happens. But it's more so just change the inputs, see what they can tolerate, make a plan. And eventually there's a point that I'm like, okay, there's not enough room to change these inputs to fix this problem. Like if you're like in a bed, not moving at 4 weeks out, she doesn't look good, and that's when you can kind of have some tough conversations. But if there's enough wiggle room to still be able to move and do the bare minimum, you just do the bare minimum.
Yeah, you're going to look at can you do the movement? What loads can you do without pissing it off past, say, a 3 out of 10 or whatever? How much volume can we do without pissing it off past a certain level? Work out what you can do in the most specific way to carry over to the skill and just not lose, like not go backward essentially, and just try and like just cruise in. Most of the time, it's just that managing around it. There are like people will push through it and get there and go like this. I want to just keep squatting heavy or whatever. But most of the time, it's like you said. I think the hard conversations here, people have to go like, hey, look, powerlifting's still going to be there. There's comp literally every weekend at somewhere in Australia, and for the sake of long-term progression, maybe it is better to be maybe not doing this comp, or maybe doing like a single lift in this comp if one of the other lifts is going great. But I find that, like you said earlier, like leaving it to the next day is super important, because a lot of people, like when you're really deep in a comp rep and you're really focused on it, you're at that stage where like your coach programs a new week and like you see the notification pop up and you're like, oh my God, and then you jump in and like you're looking at what you're deadlifting on next Friday or whatever. Like you're really like in the prep at that moment, like you're super focused on it. It's like it's priority number one in your life at that point. When you're in that sort of real into it mindset, whenever anything happens, like the smallest niggle in your elbow, or like a little bit of bicep pain from squatting, like it's almost like the world's ending a little bit. Like you're like you dramatize it a lot in your brain. You're like, this could fuck me. Like I'm doing so good right now, and this is absolutely, well, fuck it. I've like, all this effort that I've put in, complete waste of time. You really like just play this scenario out in your head of the worst case possible scenario, and it's more often than not, I get like that message from somebody, and I'm like, let's just leave it. And then the next morning they wake up and they're like, oh, it's a little tender or whatever, but like it's no worse than 3 or 4 out of 10, and I've done some body weight squats and it feels fine, and everything's going to be okay. I'm not saying that's always the case, but I find it happens a lot in prep, just because it means so much to you.
Well, you get it as well when someone just does something, and I'm certain you've had this, and you just get this like single message that turns into like 58 consecutive messages that just keep flooding your inbox about this person like starting to panic, then going through sadness, then going through anger. I feel like the whole spectrum of emotions. And generally, whenever I see that, I just fucking like leave it for an hour. So, all right, just get it all out, just fucking do the thing. and then we can chat about it when you're not in a catatonic state. Because you're right, for a lot of people, a small thing can go wrong and they can dramatize it. Or, conversely, something really bad goes wrong. And there's always like this weird, I don't know if you've experienced it, when you've hurt something initially and it doesn't feel too bad, and then you keep doing the thing, and then you wake up the next day and it's like, I have made a grave error in continuing to do the thing. It's like that 40 minutes before everything just locks down and you're just like, oh no, I can do the top set, and then you make it exponentially worse.
Yeah. You got to pick your battles for sure. It's but I've definitely been on both ends of that as an athlete and as a coach. I had that plenty of times, but I think our initial response to the first bit of failing a lift is kind of the same thing. Deal with the emotion, then come up with logic and figure out the controllables and what you can actually do about it and move forward. And if it is serious, like, I'm not going to be messaging me and tell me that you've fucked, it's still do it, please. But I mean, like you also, like, let's get some actual professional attention to this. Like, book in, start to be proactive about it. Like, do that next thing.
Like, if you blow your spine out, it's like, okay, maybe your strength coach can help you when you're getting back to moving, but maybe see a healthcare provider at that point if you're so fucked up you can't move.
Spine segment on the Cert 3-4. Actually, I'm a spinal expert now, so come to me with all of your spinal issues.
You can. You just do the big three.
Like, if
let's move
you have
on to
synovial fluid like coming out of your asshole, so you fucked it up.
Yeah. Let's go one more, I reckon. I think we tackle one more of these. There's a couple more here on our list, but we'll tackle one more. I think I am over my competition weight, as in like over your weight class, a couple of kilos, let's say, at different stages of the prep. So, like, obviously this is very different if it's 1 week out versus 12 weeks out, but just what to do if you get into those situations. So, first of all, like, you would avoid being in these situations if you do plan this stuff a long way out. So that would be, if you're still more than 12 weeks out from your competition, you should start to be thinking about this stuff now. Like, you'd be going like, I am 90 kilos and I want to compete in the 80 kilo weight class, so I should probably do something about that now. Because if you get to 2 weeks out and go like, I need to cut 10 kilos, it's just not a fun process. So the earlier you can get on top of this stuff, the better it's going to be. And there are always a couple of different approaches to it. Like, should you get under your weight class early? Should you leave a couple of kilos to cut at the end? There's lots of different approaches, and they all have pros and cons. And you and your coach should be sitting there weighing up the all these pros and cons and coming up with a plan for you. And I'm not saying any of them are right or wrong. It just depends on the situation. But if somebody is, let's say that's more than 12 weeks out. I think that really along the lines, like, you do something about it early is probably from 12 weeks out plus, really all we can say on it. Like, hire somebody who knows what they're doing, hire a nutritionist, get on board with one of our team or whatever, and we'll help you make it, and your prep will be a lot less stressful, a lot more comfortable. Let's fast forward to a little later in the prep and say it's 6 weeks out, I'm still a few kilos over my weight class. What's your response there, Zach? Like, what are we doing to tackle it at that point?
So my approach here and your approach here might be a little bit different, because over the last couple of years, I've just become quite strict with my thinking of, if someone's come to me, they've paid me money so they can step on a platform and be as strong as possible, I am not going to do something that makes you less strong. So if you're 6 weeks out of your comp and you haven't had the foresight to get on top of your weight, I will just say no. I will say, I am not going to help you cut water weight because that is not my job. I'm not going to put you on low residue because that's not my job. If you really want to do it, here's Mickey, Jordan, or Kirby's number, and that can be their problem. But if you haven't had the foresight, just compete in whatever class you're in, be as strong as you can, and if you really want to be in the next one, don't be lazy next time. Do it earlier. That's what I say to everyone, and it just made my life so much easier. Yeah. I think unless your goals are
to win at a higher level comp or to break a particular record or whatever, then we can all probably agree that cutting weight is probably not the strategy. But I mean, there are people that are going to challenge that and say, like, you know, yeah, but I want to do it. And usually it's just a little bit of ego that comes into it. Like, you just want to beat your mate, or you want to, you know, there's another guy that you follow on Instagram, you want to fuck him up or whatever. That's fine. All good. I've been there. But I'll, at the end of the day, our job is to help people with this stuff a little bit. So, I mean, if they really want to do it, all good. But there are... Like I said, it's hard to answer this question because it really is very personal. It is really very an individual thing. Like, you can go down the low residue weight, low residue water cut kind of last minute, cut water, rehydrate kind of process towards the end, and probably get away with 5% or less of your body weight in that last week if you really want to, assuming it's a 24-hour weigh-in. It is a crappy process. It's not a fun process at all. I really don't recommend it if you just want to do it for fun. And it is way easier, not just like from just, you know, coming into comp and from a performance perspective to be heavier and just to not bother with that, but also just adds compound stress to the situation, especially if you're a new competitor, because like you're sitting there worrying about all this other stuff that we've said, you failed a lift or whatever, like you're sitting there like having that on your mind, and you're worried about what you're doing next week in your program and what the plan is with that. And it's just like adds another thing to think about. Like, now I have to like really track my weight and be on point with that. And it's really hard to like have your focus directed through all these things unless you're like all in on this thing and it's the number one priority thing in your life and you don't have a whole lot else going on. When there are the more stresses you add to the bucket, the harder it is to give all of them your attention. So like, ideally, you would either, like I said, get on top of this stuff early and have pay somebody else to take this stress away from you and just be told what to do and follow that plan, or not cut at all and just be okay with whatever the fuck weight you come into comp, and just focus on performance nutrition and eating well on the day leading up, and just be energized, I guess, and get the most out of your lifts and go for it and not have it as a particular worry. Because the more you can just kind of, I've always found with my training, like I have a strength coach and I have a nutrition coach and I have people that take care of all these stresses. So I literally just can put all of my effort into just doing the thing. Like, if I can just rock up at the gym, pull out my program and go like, this is my attention, like this is all my thing. I don't have to think about like, should I be modifying this or whatever if I was writing my own program. Same with the nutrition. I don't have to think about the changes. I just do the thing and then leave the stress on somebody else's shoulders. And it just makes my life, makes my prep way more successful, because I'm just doing it. Like, I can put all of my energy into the one thing as opposed to like having my attention split up. So that's my advice on that. It's not really practical advice, but like I said, it's so hard as far as it's such an individual thing as to the best approach, based on like the weight class, the timed weight, whether it's 24-hour, 2-hour weigh-in like Pro Raw, how far you are of your weight class exactly, percentage of your body weight, if you've done it before, if your nutrition's kind of good at this point, or whether it's really shitty and then you're trying to cut from like a shitty diet as well. That makes a difference into like what's going to happen, how lean you are. There's so many factors that come into like the best approach for you. So it's really hard to give practical advice, but I hope that helps.
And for a small thing, if you haven't done any of those weight manipulation things before, and you're like, you don't know how bad it feels, or you don't know how uncomfortable, most of them make you feel moderately uncomfortable. Like, no matter what you do, whether you're doing low residue or you're cutting water, at very least, you're moderately uncomfortable for a day or two.
Yeah.
Possibly very uncomfortable, depending on how much you've left.
Well, if you mess it up like I did, and you become severely uncomfortable, severely dehydrated, and nearly pass out, and it's just not good. Yeah. It's not worth it. Well, I think depending on how competitive you are,
you have someone who comes to a coach and it's like, But then if someone's really competitive, they're probably on top of it earlier.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I mean. Like, 90%
you'd like to think so. If someone's going for a world record.
Yeah, fuck, you'd hope so.
Yeah.
But if someone's just going to their local meet to have a bit of fun, put up some post on Instagram afterwards to show their family and friends that they're really, really strong now. I just don't think it matters.
Nobody's questioning it
at all.
Nobody's questioning what weight you were after you post up, like your PB deadlift or whatever. If they are, like, fuck that person. Yeah, to give it a story, like my first comp, I came out of bodybuilding, so I was well over my nutrition. So I can justify it a little bit more, I guess. But like, I really knew my body well at that point. I'd been super lean on stage and knew how to manipulate body weight. Was very, very consistent, but still not the right choice. But at my first comp States, GPC States 2015, I think I cut 6 kilos. I went from 106 kilos down into the 100 kilo class. And nice. I remember thinking, like, I've done bodybuilding, this will be easy. And it just was, it was not easy. And then my second one, I decided I gained 2 kilos of mass, whatever, between comps, of weight. And, had to cut even more, cut from 108 down to 100. And, then I remember my coach at the time just, like, sitting on the other side of the sauna door, just, like, holding it closed, and I'm sitting there like, fuck this, let me out. So yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun. And so if you don't want to be there, if you don't want to sit there banging on a door of a sauna, hating your life, like, just don't worry about it. Because really, like, it wouldn't have mattered. Looking back on it, it really wouldn't have mattered whether I did the 100 or the 110 class. I would have, would have went fine either way. I think I would have won the weight class either way.
And half the time, the podium's not even full. It's like, if the podium's not full in the weight class, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like,
all right, let's unless there's any of these other ones that you really particularly have some strong thoughts on, Zach. Oh wait, yes, you do. Your last one. I'll let you get. Everybody can pick whether they.
My last one.
The one which Zach had heavy influence on. So give us your situation.
So gonna shout out to Ben Hester. He did a comp a couple of weeks ago, did quite well, and he was telling me how he was going to pack chili con carne for his comp meal.
Yep. Nice.
And I just want to give a shout out to anyone who brings chili to a competition. Don't. That's it. Just don't eat chili at a competition.
Yeah,
why would you think that's a good idea? I have seen people.
I also wouldn't recommend Red Rooster.
I've seen people vomit on head judges. I've seen people shit themselves at comps. And knowing that that's a possibility if you don't eat chili, why the fuck would you eat chili? That's it. That's all I got.
Tasty. Just tasty, bro.
Come on, Ben. Pick up your game. Love you, Ben.
Yeah. So, don't... we could go through a whole list of advice on what and what not to eat at cons, but we won't. But yeah, that'll be the takeaway for that
just
one.
Don't eat chili.
Don't no, like, heavy liquid spicy meals, I would say. Like any sort of curries or anything like that are probably just not an ideal choice for a competition food. We have a whole guide on competition foods if you want. I can guarantee you, like, none of them are chilies or curries.
So the general rule of thumb is if, like, a white lady bogan named Karen can cook it, it's probably fine to eat.
Oh, God.
If Karen can't cook it, don't eat it.
There you go.
Well, Karen's not using spices or flavors or oils. She's fucking got
interpretation of
sausage and bread.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. Yeah, and
sausage and bread. It's perfect.
Josh said something before about Red Rooster. I've done that. I think in that first comp that I was talking about, the one where this compounds the issue, but yeah, I cut the 6 kilos for it, and then I forget whether it was between squat and bench or between bench and deadlift, but like in the break between those lifts, I went and got some Red Rooster for my meals, and it was not a good choice. Not a good choice. So not only did I cut the weight, but then I and not the best regather either. Cool. All right, let's leave that there. Let's if anybody else has any particular situations that they want our thoughts on about a comp prep, maybe you're 4 weeks out or whatever it is at the moment, and you've run into a particular situation where you're not really 100% sure what to do, then you know what to do. Jump on the website and hit the feedback form and just hit us with anything that you have, any questions, any issues, any feedback on if you've been in any of these situations. Maybe you have some advice as to how you handled it that was a little bit different to what we said. Anything, I'd love to hear it.
And please send us your videos of eating an entire watermelon. The video cannot be paused. You cannot leave frame at any time. And the prize will be decided by Mickey. I will have no choice in it. So it might not be a good prize, but just send us a video to the NexusPerformance.Aus page of you consuming a whole watermelon, and we'll take care of you.
Excellent.
Thanks for that, Zach.
Thank you for listening to Nexus Unloaded. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned on today's podcast, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gym services. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at NexusPerformance.Aus for any updates on what we are currently doing. See you all in the next episode.